Okay, so let's look at our first business accelerator tip. This is accelerator tip number 1, and this comes from what is arguably, or maybe not even arguably, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, Michael Jordan. I've failed over and over, and that is why I succeed. So business accelerator tip number 1 is don't be afraid of failure. One of the biggest things that a lot of people have to come to grips with is that taking that step to start a small business or launch a product or get going in the entrepreneurial realm is that it's risky. People don't want to necessarily take on that risk, so they're afraid to fail. Now, if you're afraid to fail, then you're really not going to be taking the proper steps. You're probably not going to take that first step to begin with. And when you do take that step, then it'll be like you're walking on eggshells because you're afraid to fail. You're afraid to lose money here. You're afraid you're going to be hiring the wrong people. You're afraid you're not going to get the business. You're afraid you're not going to get the sale. You can't be afraid of failure because, unfortunately, most businesses do fail. And, if all of these people who started businesses were afraid of failure, they would have never gotten off the ground to begin with. So, most successful entrepreneurs, a lot of successful entrepreneurs have failed. Some of the greatest, entertainers and some of the greatest business minds of our time have gone bankrupt. So, does that, do they stop doing what they're doing? No. Well, they use that to kind of launch themselves into the next venture, and they learn from their mistakes. I can speak personally from this. Back in 2002, I started up a business, and I thought it was a great business. Unfortunately, it didn't do so well, and it failed. But I'll tell you, did that failure actually have it so that I was even more scared to go on and start another business venture? No, absolutely not. I wanted to overcome that failure. I wanted to succeed in the next venture, just so I know that that I wasn't a failure. Okay, so the whole point with failure, though, is that you have to learn from your mistakes. I probably learned way more from my failure, the company that failed. I learned more from that than I did from the companies in my business that has been very successful. So you have to look failure in the eye, and you have to recognize it also as an opportunity for the next venture or changing things up, doing things differently. So in terms of failure, one of the other avenues you might want to look at is you have to really come to grips with yourself. You have to have, a one-on-one with your spouse if you're married and say, okay, what if this business fails? Can we still support our family? Can we still put food on the table if for the next year, I won't be bringing home a paycheck? Or if during the next year, we're going to have to tap into our savings or tap into the, equity in our home to invest in this business. You have to kind of look at the worst case situation before you go in. Now, doing that is a great planning process because, planning is the way to succeed. But, if you look at all those numbers, then at the same time, don't be afraid to fail, okay? So if you're in a situation where you can't afford not to get a paycheck because you have to put food on the table and send the kids to school and, you need that paycheck, well, then your launch formula for a new business might be a little bit different than the launch formula for someone who's, put money aside and is basically well off and able to take that time to build their business. So that is accelerator tip number 1. Don't be afraid to fail.